Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's episode, we're still working on the Yamaha R6 Copart build. We are going to start the bodywork. So in the previous episodes, we disassembled everything, kind of investigated and figured out what the problems with the bike were. Now we're going to start moving forward to the bodywork. Now I've decided to do the naked style. The reason why I wanted to try it, something different, it's new, it's popular right now. And also I can always revert back and add the fairings back on should I choose to do so. So the first step we're going to be taking is going to be on the tank. So as you can see, tank's a little beat up. So we got a couple things we got to do here. One, well, I got to take off this tank pad here, but we got to fix these dents here. There's a couple here, down through here. I've got one right here, and I think that's the majority from what I can see on this tank. So we'll end up peeling the stickers, all the stickers off it. We'll end up taking the right-hand fairing off it here. And then to start with, what we're going to try to use from the inside of the tank, or the bottom side of the tank, is working the dents from the inside out. What you see here isn't some kind of weird physician tool. These are what are called PDR, Paintless Dent Removal Tools. Don't get too excited though, because though I know how to use them, I am not good at using them. So I'm going to try to use those to get it out. If that does not work, we may take some light taps with a hammer and whack some of the stuff on the inside basically out. After that, we will do some fine tuning with some glazing putty, or sheepskin, whale skin, they call it all kinds of different stuff, but some fine Bondo basically, to start filling some of it in after we grind it and clean it down. So let's go ahead and move forward. Let me go ahead and take all this stuff off. Alright guys, so here you can see we've stripped everything off the tank except for some like the foam padding, which we'll all get off when we get some of the residue off. But I'm going to go ahead and move forward, and I'm going to try to see if I can knock these dents out from the bottom and see how that works. So let's work at that and see how we can get it done. Alright, so just before I start guys, I wanted you to be able to see from the inside. You can really tell with a smooth one, basically just metal tint color, all the kind of the dings and dents in it. So it's going to be some work. It's not going to be a simple dent fix. We're going to have quite a bit of work on our hands trying to get this smoothed out. But again, I just wanted to show you before I started kind of what we were working with. Okay, so this might be hard to tell, but the only way I was able to get any dents out was not with any of the PDR tools. It was actually with old Slugger. So if you guys have seen the Viper channel or build, then you know how I use these things in random ways. I was able to get it to pound out that humongous dent right there. Now it's not perfect, but it's definitely pulled out if you guys can tell that. Now the PDR setup didn't work, and the reason why, typically if you think of your car, you're going to drill a hole inside your door panel, and you're going to use that very hole as leverage as you put this in here to push on the outside of the body. The problem is the damage is on the top of the tank, and the only hole we had to access it was the fuel tank hole. I'm sorry, the fuel pump hole, which is way too large. So these were basically useless. So the Slugger was the only thing we could use to get those dents out. The rest is going to be sanded down and filled in with Bondo. If you look at our next tools, these are some different sanding discs that we're going to be using to rough cut and get all the rough stuff off before we start laying down the filler. So let's go ahead and work on that. Okay guys, so there was a primary tool for stripping the paint without tearing it up too bad. Those ones are more abrasive. I didn't think I'd need them, but just in case I had them. But yeah, that was the main one. Works fantastic, as you can see, down to the bare metal. Everywhere that it has been ground down is the areas where there is damage that needs filler. You can kind of see those from reflection. There, little tiny ones over there. And no, that's not apple juice, that's actually gasoline. I use that to wipe off any extra residue from the stickers and stuff, just to make sure it's not on there, and that is nice and clean before the body filler goes on. So now we're going to go ahead and put on some body filler. Give me a second, let me grab it and show you what I use. Okay guys, so this particular stuff that I have now is called Fast Glaze. There's a ton of different names for it. Some call them icing, some call it, like I said, seal skin. There's just all kinds of different names for it, but basically it's a Bondo. It's just really more pliable and smooth and more liquidy, and it looks like cake icing once it dries, so it actually works really well. It's much harder than a regular Bondo, but it's just like Bondo. It's a two-part epoxy. Basically it's your main unit with a hardener. There's always for small pinholes, which typically get with Bondo you don't really get with this stuff. Is glazing and spot putty. I don't really use it. I've never really had good luck with it. And I never really needed it once I quit using Bondo, but I have it just in case. So what we'll do is we take our putty knife, we'll take like a cardboard box or whatever and spread the base on it and mix it in. I use the putty knife to kind of mix it together, and then what I'll do is I'll apply it with a metal one of these rather than I don't like the plastic ones. I don't think they work very well, but it gives a better uniform basically contour to it when I use it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and get the first layer on right now. Let me show you what it looks like when it's all done. All right, so there's the first layer. You can kind of see I've got pretty much most of the areas. I kind of screwed up a little bit and put a little bit too much hardener and used too much material as well. But I'll give you a couple tips. I'm not an expert body guy by any means. I've said this before. I can do it, and I do a decent job. But a couple tips have been successful for me. One, thin layers. A lot of people try to like just load it on, and it doesn't work well like that because the bottom, the side closest to the metal doesn't adhere well. So you want to make sure you're getting it to the metal. You're not putting it on the paint in the areas that are going to be dented so it gets a good adhesion. But then, like I said, thin layers. Thin layers, I don't care if it's 10 layers, do thin layers. It will level itself out as you're sanding. You'll have much better success. Second thing, don't use too much hardener. I did, and mine literally is like, it's not hard yet, but it's actually pretty hard. It's been like 4 minutes, and it's like pretty hard. So that would be number two. Try to get the right ratio of how much you're using, and then make sure that you're mixing it well and it's consistent color. You don't see any streaks of like the blue or red hardener or whatever color you're using. And the other side of it too is how much you use. You don't want to waste too much. Now again, I thought I was going to need more than I did, and I just okay. So anyways, don't use too much material because you're just going to waste it. Last thing I would say is, if you see right now, it's hardening on top of my metal spatula, whatever you want to call that thing. I use a razor blade and I scrape that off. It'll come off nice and easy. So it's a lot easier doing that than when it's completely hard, when it's just kind of putty-like, because it peels right off. So that is first layer. We are going to let it dry for a while. We're going to sand it off, and I'll show you exactly what it looks like. Oh, and one more thing. As this thing starts drying, you're naturally going to want to keep wiping it and swiping it. It's going to start drying, and it's going to end up doing this when you go to wipe it. It's going to be dry, and then you're not going to have the greatest results. So keep in mind understanding your drying times and when to leave it alone. Get the smooth layer like I did over here on it, and leave it alone. So let me move forward. All right, guys, so there is the first layer sanded down. What you're going to want to do now, well, at least what I like to do, is I like to take a pencil and find the, because this is basically a rough sand just to get that basic shape. So I want to find the imperfections everywhere that I got to fill, that are pretty much noticeable, where you can see. And those are the areas that I'm going to be targeting on the second round. So if you can kind of see those areas. Now I know it looks like there's a lot, because really there is. There's a lot like there was originally. But, you know, we're putting layer on top of layer. We're not doing it real thick. So we're doing it thin enough to where basically we're not going to have a glob over here on the tank that's not needed or whatever. So again, I use a pencil. I wouldn't use a pen or a marker because it will end up bleeding through your paint. You will not be happy with it. You won't be able to cover it. At least I don't know of any way to. So I wouldn't use, again, a pen. Just use a pencil if you're able to do so. But this is it here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and mix up another batch and do a light fill over top of these areas here. Then we will sand it again, and we'll throw a coat of primer on it. And once that's dry, we'll do another light sand, and we'll get it wet with basically a spray bottle just to see how smooth the overall appearance is of it. So let's go ahead and move forward. All right, guys, so there is the second layer. Now, if you'll notice, I did have to put a lot more right here than I was expecting to. So it was a little bit thicker like the first round. But if you notice all the rest of them, they're pretty much a lot thinner than the first time we applicated it. And the reason why is because we're already kind of rounding, or not rounding, but smoothing that surface and filling in those dents. So every time you have a layer, it should get thinner and thinner and make it easier and easier. One of the reasons I like to use the metal ones versus the plastic is they get a better straight edge on it. So you get just kind of a better fill with it. But again, this is the second round. We're going to let that dry, and then we're going to come back and go ahead and sand that, and I will show you basically the difference from now till then. Oh, and another note before I head out. Also, I started the first round with an 80 to 100 grit, actually drywall sandpaper. It works better than anything because it does not get clogged. And then when I went ahead and mixed the second batch, I used far less hardener because I wanted more time to be able to smooth and work with it. And basically that's what you get by doing it. But again, just a quick note, let's move forward. Okay guys, so here is the second round sanded down. And what you'll notice is there's a lot less, there's smaller circles. So a lot of these are going to be touch-ups with the glazing putty. The only area that I have fill in is right here. And again, that was the worst part of the tank, so it's really not bad. You can see how smooth everything's coming out. And this is end-all be-all with a, what is it here? 220 grit. So that's where we're at. We'll get finer and finer, but what we're going to do this time, again, after we apply the filler, we are going to use probably like something large, like a 400. Then we'll sand the whole tank. We'll get a primer layer over top of it, and we'll see how smooth it is to paint. So let's go ahead and move forward. All right, guys, there you go. There's the third round, or third layer. I think at this point you guys kind of get the point. So I'm going to go ahead and sand that down, and I'm going to put on a self-etching primer to get the paint to stick, or be able to stick to the bare metal. And I'll show you what it looks like when it's all done. Okay guys, so there it is with the self-etching primer. This is what I used here. And then next step is what you see right here. A basic sandable primer. We're going to hit the whole tank. Get a good cover over it, then we're going to do a real light sand on it with maybe like a 600 grit to get everything smoothed down before it gets ready for paint. Alright guys, so there you have it. That is the final spray of the primer. Again, we'll do probably a 600 grit sand down when it's time to paint. But that's it. You can kind of see pretty much all the dents are gone. The only area I really see any kind of dent at all whatsoever, and it's almost impossible to see, is right there. It comes up just a little bit because that real deep dent was next to it, so it pressed up a little bit. But that's okay. I can live with that. Compared to what it was, that tank looks absolutely fantastic. So that's it for the tank. Let's go ahead and move forward to the other body parts. Alright guys, so we're moving on to the side lower fairings. Again, keep in mind we're doing a Street Fighter style, so we are going to be cutting these up. Normally, I hate cutting them, but they're already kind of damaged. They'll be sandable and usable again. It's not really something I could sell on eBay, so rather than buying some cheap Chinese plastics and trying to make them work, we're going to go ahead and cut these up. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut them right at the line that you see here of the tape, and we're going to be using our trusty Dremel tool with our cutoff tool. Now, well, as the famous saying goes, people like to say there's more than one way to skin a pig. I don't like that saying, so let's just say there's more than one different way to go about cutting these. You could use like a fine-tooth jigsaw, a razor blade probably if you wanted to. I'm just choosing to do this method because I am going to sand it down a little ways afterwards. Plus there needs to be some sanding done here. So let's go ahead and cut that real quick and show you what it looks like. Okay, so there is that cut. You can see it did a decent job. Not perfect, but again, we're going to be sanding the edges and kind of smoothing it out anyways. So overall it worked. I'll tell you, it scared the crap out of me. It was spinning so fast that it just bent. I've never seen anything like that. I don't know if it's because of the force of how fast that thing was spinning. I had to bend it back, but be careful if you guys are using one of them things. That thing was dangerous. Anyways, let's go ahead and do some sanding and show you what it looks like afterwards. Alright guys, so there's the panel all complete as far as prep. So what I did was I went ahead and sanded everything down and touched up with some primer along the edges, as you can see. I went ahead and removed the decal. For those of you that are following this build and maybe be doing a build the same way, if you have problems with your decal, easy way to get it off, you know, if it's chipping in little pieces, just put some heat on it, whether that be a heat gun or a hair dryer or whatever. Just put some heat on it. It almost like renews the vinyl, and you can peel it right off. So this is the first side here. Let me show you what the second looks like. Alright guys, so here is the second side. I do have a small crack right here that needs to be repaired. The way I'm going to be doing that is with a heat plastic welder. Now, this one was bought at Harbor Freight, and you guys have probably heard me say before, I don't like to buy electronic items from Harbor Freight. This one is legit though. This one does work well. I have no complaints with it. It also comes with a few extras, some wire mesh and some extra plastic for you to melt it. Basically what you're going to be doing is, or I'd be doing, is melting the back side of this here and adhering a small piece of the metal to the back of it. And then I'm going to take some plastic and melt it over the top of that metal mesh. And then the front side will get sanded down and filled in with body filler, and that's pretty much it. It's pretty straightforward, and it works really well. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick, and then we'll move forward. Alright guys, so there you see the plastic is melted in place. Now what you're trying to do here is you're really trying to melt the base first, like I told you, then get the mesh into it, and then you're really trying to mesh the new plastic in with the old. You want to kind of make it all in one to give it that stiff firmness. And if you look at the top here, I just went ahead and hit the top a little bit. I'm going to sand it down smooth to make it look good, but it is tight, not cracking. It's holding just like as if it was never broken, so it works really well. Anyways, let me go ahead and get that sanded down. We're going to move forward. Alright guys, so here we are getting ready to paint. This is kind of our DIY homemade paint booth. I'm not doing what I've done before that you've probably seen if you're subscribed, where I'm covering all the walls and everything. Not really necessary. We're not doing that much spraying. We're not spraying a car or anything. Some of the other stuff's covered up, so it doesn't really matter. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to spray all these parts. We're waiting on one more part to get delivered by the post office today. Hopefully it'll get in time. It's the rear cowl. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the normal. We're going to spray the base. We are going to spray the mid and clear with the pearl in it. And then we're going to let it dry, and we'll see what it looks like when it's all done. So let's go ahead and take some footage of that. Okay guys, well here's the finished product. I did have some runs, mainly on these two pieces here. Let's see if you can see them. You can kind of see it dripped right there. And on this one here, it's fairly obvious where you can see the drips. Basically I shot the second coat way too soon. Probably should have waited another 10 or 15 minutes, but good news is you can really see the color shift in that thing. A lot better than you could on those wheels. So I did add more pearl just to be safe, to give us the right color we needed. And side panels look fantastic, almost perfect. Rear tail hugger, good. Front fender was good, all but some runs on the very bottom there. That'll all get wet sanded off, not a big deal. Tanks came out great. A little bit of running. You can't, it's kind of tough to see, but a little bit right there. Not terrible. The front shroud, good. So far everything looks good. Again, that was black base with 2 coats of pearl over top of it. That was the pearl mixed in with the clear coat. No need to do a mid coat. I think that's just a waste. But there it is. So let's go ahead and get the spike assembled and see what this thing looks like. Alright guys, so we're going to make a change. We're going to go ahead and wrap that up for the bodywork video. Try to keep that as simple as possible, and I'm going to go ahead and save the footage for the next video as far as installing everything. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video and maybe learned something. If you could, please leave a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Any questions you might have, put them in the comments down below, and I appreciate you watching. I'll see you in the next video.